everyone. This is Sweta Tuladhar from Atuse Online Study, and today I'm going to give you my presentation Basic Foundation of Public Policy. And here I'm going to discuss about concept of public policy, policy analysis, nature and scope of public policy. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to my friends Miss Srijana Shrestha, Miss Jyotsna Dev and Miss Jaya Podia. Concept of policy. Policy is a plan of action that serves as a basis for taking decisions to achieve a particular purpose. It is principle for conduct as well as a course of action to be adopted by an individual, a group, a public or private organization, or a government as a guide and standard to realize a specific purpose within a given environment. Hence, the term policy may apply to governmental, private sector organizations, groups, and individuals. Policy is principle set of actions and inactions to achieve rational outcome. Public policy means a course of action or inaction taken by governmental agencies to resolve a particular issue or set of issues. Public policies are those principles that guide the decisions of government to resolve policy problems or issues. Here are some definitions given by some scholars and intellectuals. According to Easton, public policy is authoritative allocation of values for the whole society. According to Dye, public policy is whatever government chooses to do or not to do. According to Anderson, public policy is a purposive course of action followed by an actor or set of actors in dealing with a problem or matter of concern. According to Frohock, public policy is a patent attempt either to resolve or manage political disputes or to persuade rational incentives to secure agreed upon goals, with public issues capable of ranging from and wide over both material goods and ethical issues. According to Cochrane and Malone, public policy is the study of government decisions and actions designed to deal with a matter of public concern. It is comprised of political decisions for implementing programs to achieve societal goals. These decisions hopefully represent a consensus of values. When analyzed, public policy comprises a plan of action or programs and a statement of objectives. In other words, map and destination. From all these definitions, we can say that public policy is government decisions and actions designed to deal with issues and problems of the state. Its principal sets of do's and don'ts formulated by government, which is to be followed by individual and concerned groups to achieve specific objective or rational outcome. Public policy is the principled guide to action taken by the administrative executive branches of the state with regard to a large class of issues in a manner consistent with law and institutional customs. It is a means through which government maintains order or addresses the needs of its citizens through actions defined by its constitution. Public policies are made for conducting some social welfare, which may be like setting tax rates, rectifying perceived inequalities, sex education, poverty alleviation, community health and sanitation, and generation of employment opportunities. Though public policies represent those policies developed by governmental agencies, role and influence of several non-governmental actors and factors cannot be overlooked. The government should see to it that individuals, groups, and institutions within a given environment are obeying and cooperating to implement policies. Policies may be explicit and implicit. Explicit policies are written form of policy which are open and thus citizens have access to them. Implicit policies may be apparent only to those who are intimately familiar with the details of programs. It is to be noted that policy once made is not forever. With the lapse of time and change in the situation, change in policy may become inevitable. A change in policy may be proposed and debated in public with full participation of interest groups and mass media. Policy making process. In political science, the policy cycle is a tool used for analyzing the development of a policy item. Policy making can be characterized as a dynamic, complex, analytical through which public problems are identified and countered by creating new public policy or by reforming existing public policy. It is a continuous process that has many feedback loops. According to James E. Anderson, public policy making has the following stages, and these are as follows: agenda setting, which is also known as problem identification. It is the first stage, and in this stage there is the recognition of certain subject as a problem demanding further government attention. Then the second is policy formulation. It involves exploring a variation of options or alternate courses of action available for addressing the problem, like appraisal, dialogue, formulation, and consolidation. And third one is decision making. Government decides on an ultimate course of action, whether to perpetuate the policy status quo or after it. Decision could be positive, negative, or no action. Then the fourth one is implementation. Here, the ultimate decision made earlier will be put into practice. Then the last one and the fifth one is evaluation. In this stage, there is assessment of the effectiveness of a public policy in terms of its perceived intentions and results. Policy actors attempt to determine whether the course of action is a success or failure by examining its impact and outcomes. The public problems that influence public policy making can be of economic, social, or political nature. In public policy making, numerous individuals, corporations, non-profit organizations, and interest groups compete and collaborate to influence policymakers to act in a particular way. Policy choices. Policy choice refers to alternative options as a solution to problems with respect to particular situation. One type of policy made for a particular case may not be appropriate for another type of problem due to the right time, place, and situation. For example, policy implemented in urban area or for construction of roadways should not be same in hilly and rural areas because outcome may not be the same. There is a study of comparative public administration due to different outcomes from same policy due to varying place, time, and situation. Public policy analysis. Analysis means evaluating and measuring the impact of particular policy. The basic idea is to determine the effectiveness and efficiency of the impact of particular policy. It is meant to examine the extent of policy performance as measured against the achievement of policy goals. Thus, the evaluation of this sort demands consideration on the changes on both the quantitative and qualitative aspects of the policy result. Policy analysis includes the examination and improvement of policy-making process itself as well as the evaluation of policy choice and outcomes. Policy thus constitutes the understanding of the process by which policy is formulated. Policy analysis also covers an evaluation of policy options and policy consequences. This aspect demands the need to take a careful analysis of policy-making process. On the basis of above aspects, it is obvious that policy analysis demands knowledge by which policies are made, implemented, and evaluated. Thus, policy analysis involves primary concern with explanation rather than prescription, rigorous search for the causes and consequences of public policies, effort to develop and test general propositions about the causes and consequences of public policies. According to William Dunn, policy analysis is an intellectual and practical activity aimed at creating, critically accessing, and communicating knowledge of and in the policy making process. Knowledge of policy analysis refers to systematic empirical studies of how policies are made and put in effect, and knowledge in policy analysis refers to understanding that the effectiveness of policies making depends upon access to the stock of available knowledge. Policy analysis is an applied social science discipline which uses multiple methods of inquiry and argument to produce and transform policy relevant information that may be utilized in political settings to resolve public problems. According to Ralph P. Chandler and Jack C. Plano, policy analysis is a systematic and data-based alternative to institutive judgment about the effects of policy or policy options. It is used for problem assessment and monitoring, as a before-the-fact decision tool, for evaluation. According to Cohen and Malone, there is a difference between positive and normative policy analysis. Positive policy analysis is a type of policy analysis which strives to understand the policy as it is without any indication of approval or disapproval. It also explains how various social and political forces would change policy. Normative policy analysis. Normative policy analysis is type of policy analysis which is directed towards studying what public policy ought to be to improve the general welfare. Hence, it expresses a judgment about what ought to be, whether a situation is desirable or undesirable, its perspective, and recommends action to be taken. Analysis of policy includes policy determination. It is concerned with which policy is formulated, why, when, and for whom. Policy content. It is a description of particular policy and how much such policy is developed as compared to other policies. Policy monitoring and evaluation. This aspect examines the level and extent of policy performance as measured against policy goals, including the policy impact of a particular policy. Analysis for policy includes two distinct aspects, and they are information for policy. The basic idea of this aspect is to feed into policy making activities extensive internal or external research or advice of a judgmental or qualitative nature, and this is likely to support in identifying or sorting policy options. Policy advocacy. It involves research and arguments which are intended to influence policy agents. Characteristics of policy analysis. Policy analysis is applied and problem-oriented rather than pure and problem-blind. Policy analysis is multidisciplinary approach which is basic to deal with the real various types of problem. Policy analysis requires politically sensitive planning. The analyst should be trained in the political skills as well as in planning techniques and approaches. They should have awareness and understanding of and sympathy for this essentially political nature of policy process. It is basic need for analysis to generate recommendations that are likely to have impact. Policy analysis is client-oriented as it demands concern for clients. Policy analysts are required to be committed to society and they should act as an agent of social change. The study of policy analysis includes analysis of the policy process. This encompasses a definition of the problem, agenda setting, formulation, implementation, and evaluation of the policies. Analysis of for the policy analysis. This encompasses the use of analytical techniques, research and advocacy in problem definition, policy formulation, implementation, and evaluation. Forms of policy analysis. There are three forms of policy analysis, and they are prospective policy analysis. It involves the production and transformation of information before policy actions are initiated and implemented. The information helps draw or identify policy options that serve as a basis for policy decision. It focuses on questions like what will happen in a particular situation and what should be done for taking corrective actions. Retrospective policy analysis. It is concerned with the production and transformation of information after policy actions have been taken. It focuses on results, consequences of action, and hence concerned with questions like what happened and what difference does it make. Integrated policy analysis. It is a comprehensive form of analysis which combines the operating styles of practitioners concerned with the production and transformation of information both before and after policy action have been taken. It provides for the continuous monitoring and evaluation of policies over time. Approaches of policy analysis by Dunn. Dunn identifies three approaches to policy analysis, namely empirical approach, valuative approach, and normative approach. Empirical approach is concerned primarily with describing the causes and effect of given public policies. The primary concern is factual and the type of information produced is descriptive in character. Valuative approach is mainly concerned with determining the worth or value of some policy. Here, the question is one of value and the type of information produced is valuative in character. Normative approach is concerned with recommending future courses of action that may resolve public problems. Here, the question is one of action and the type of information produced is perspective. Prerequisite of good policy analysis. Boltzmann has given some prerequisites for good policy analysis, which are as follows. Data requirements. The availability of adequate and reliable data greatly supports policy analysis. Some relevant questions that emerged in evaluating the quality of policy analysis constitute: do data measure something relevant to the purposes of the analysis? How reliable is data over time and across cases? Is method employed for obtaining the data is satisfactory? Knowledge of policy. Individual policy domains are unique in some aspects and are like other policy domains in other aspects. Analysts who is unfamiliar with problems of domains are vulnerable. For instance, science policy is essentially distributive, while environmental policy is typically regulatory. The payoff from science policy is future-oriented, while payoff from environmental policy is often protection of status quo. There may be different actors, hence it is important to be familiar with history and peculiarities of the particular programs of policy domain under analysis. Epistemological and methodological considerations. A good policy analysis is that which is most rigorous and most closely approximates the scientific model of inquiry. Data analysis of data and a self-conscious concern with systematically accessing the impacts of policy takes us a long way towards the achievement of goal with rational outcome. Interdisciplinary exchanges. Public policy reflects a converging curiosity on the part of social scientists, mathematicians, and psychologists about decision-making process. Policy analysis is a multidisciplinary approach, and hence the experts of different fields are required to work together on a policy problem. These experts from various fields should also be sufficiently aware of concepts and approaches from other disciplines while conducting analysis. Perspective. Perspective is saying exactly what must happen especially by giving an instruction or making a rule. In the course of policy formulation or modification, analysts will have some judgment about the implications of their analysis. Policy analysts should be able to indicate how much confidence they have in their correctness. If the analysts have no idea how policy should be modified in light of their findings, they should refrain from prescriptions. Nature of public policy. The nature of public policy is associated with its basic features or characteristics, and such features thus form the basis for understanding the nature. Anderson mentions five implications which constitute the basic foundations of nature of public policy, and they are purposive or goal-oriented action rather than random or chance behavior, courses of patterns of action by government officials rather than their separate discrete decisions. For example, public policy isn't just decision of any government officials to approve any law, but also decisions made for implementation of that law. Things actually done by the government. Policy is what government actually do in regulating trade, controlling inflation, or promoting public housing, etc., and not what it intends or promises to public. Policy is expressed in either positive or negative form. Policy is expressed in positive form by government taking action and in negative form by not taking action. Both forms of action intends to resolve problems and issues based on law and in authoritative. It is legally coercive, and hence all the individuals, groups, organizations who are actors to the policy are bound to follow it. Violation of policy makes actors liable to legal actions or punishment. Some other nature and characteristics of public policy are as follows. Policy and decisions are different concepts. Policy is larger than a decision. A policy usually involves a series of more specific decisions. The concept of decision is associated with decision maker, but policy usually involves having multiple interactions among many individuals, groups, and organizations. Policy involves behavior as well as intentions. Policy is less readily distinguished from administration. Policy involves actions as well as inaction. Policy have outcomes which may or may not have been foreseen. Policy is purposive course of action, but purposes may not be defined retrospectively. Policy arises from a process over time. Policy involves a key but not exclusive rate for public agencies. Policies are formulated and implemented for the benefit of society. Policy is the product of a political process. It relates past, present, and future, as public policy is the principal vehicle conditioned by past, made by the present for the future. Interdisciplinary in nature, which involves knowledge and expertise from various fields to solve policy problems. Implementation and analysis are basics. Policy formulation is meaningless without implementation, and without evaluation is shooting in the darkness. Scope of public policy. The basic idea behind considering the scope of public policy is to know or understand the extent of coverage of the areas or subjects within its boundary, which cannot be confined to a limit. According to Anderson, comprehensive understanding of the concept covers areas as follows. Policy demands. They are demands or claims made upon public officials by other actors, private or officials in the political system for action or inaction on some perceived problems. Such demands may take the form of insistence that government ought to do something, to a proposal for specific action or on the matter. Policy decision. They are decisions made by public officials that authorize or give direction and content to public policy. Examples of policy decisions are decisions to enact statutes, issue executive orders or edicts, promulgate decrees, etc. Policy statements. According to Anderson, policy statements are formal expressions or articulations of public policy. They include legislative statutes, decrees, presidential orders, administrative rules, and court opinions, indicating the intentions and goals of government and the ways and means of realizing them. Policy statements are sometimes ambiguous and conflicting in the sense that different and contradictory policy statements may be issued by different levels, branches, or units of government on a particular problem. Policy outputs. According to Anderson, policy outputs are tangible manifestation of policies or the things actually done in pursuance of policy decisions and statements. They are what government does as distinguished from what it says it will do. They produce an effect in an environment from policy actions taken by government officials. Policy output includes health centers, schools, industries actually built, road that has been constructed, and other infrastructures of development that has been created. Policy output may sometimes refer from what policy statement indicate they should be. Policy outcomes. Policy outcomes refer to the real result produced or actual impact on the target group. They are consequences intended or unintended for society that result from action or inaction by government. For example, the intended consequences of the current privatization policy being implemented in India are efficiency and high profit of privatized firms, removal of government subsidies of enterprises, thereby saving crore of rupees worth of public funds spent on them over the years, etc. But the intended consequences are inflation and the consequent hardship for families due to low purchasing power. Scope of public policy. Policy can be taken as independent variable or dependent variable. When we study it as dependent variable, we study about causes and effect of political and environmental aspects. When we study it as independent variable, we study about effect of public policy on political system, selection of future policies, and social welfare. Political and governmental system. It consists of political structure, institutions, processes, and behaviors which is affected by environment. Policy environment. It consists external factors and forces of systems such as political, social, cultural, technological, and economical development. Dye considers 3 elements and 6 linkages in policy analysis. Knowledge and understanding about elements and linkages are basic to understand the scope and importance of public policy. The following figure shows the elements and the linkages in policy analysis. There is linkage among political and government system, policy environment, and public policies. Policy environment consists of wealth and income, inflation, recession, unemployment, educational level, environmental quality, poverty, racial composition, inequality, discrimination, religious and ethnic makeup, and health and longevity, whereas political and governmental system consist of governmental form, constitutional type, bureaucracy, political parties, patterns of participation, interest group system, power structures, voting behavior, and level of conflict. And lastly, public policies consist of civil rights policies, educational policies, welfare policies, healthcare policies, income redistribution policies, taxation and spending, defense policies, environmental policies, and regulation. Here are 6 linkages, namely A, B, C, D, E, and F. So we have here linkage A refers to the effect of policy environment on political and governmental system. Linkage B refers to the effect of political and governmental system on public policies. Uh, and the effect of policy environment. The linkage C refers to the effect of policy environment on public policies. Linkage D shows the effect, that is feedback of public policies on policy environment, and linkage E shows the effect as feedback of the political and governmental system on policy environment and social and economic conditions. And lastly, linkage F shows the effect, that is feedback of public policies on public political and governmental system. So here are the references from where I extracted the information for giving this presentation. So it was pleasure for me to share my knowledge via Atu's online study channel. More of the educational videos are on the way, so do press like button, share button, and subscribe button. And do leave your valuable comments in comment box so that it would help us to improve our weakness and maintain better sides of us. So thank you.